The future King Charles II of England was born 75 years ago on this day, November 15th, in 1948, at Buckingham Palace, which is now his current residence as the reigning monarch. His birth was the first royal birth to occur at Buckingham Palace in 62 years. The then Princess Elizabeth, Charles' mother, who is now Queen Elizabeth II, had a very difficult 30-hour labor before needing to have a caesarean section performed in a makeshift medical ward assembled in the Belgian suite of Buckingham Palace. After the arduous delivery, the newborn Prince Charles was described as a really splendid baby by those present. Soon after the birth, thousands of eager British citizens who had gathered outside the palace gates to await the news finally heard that the baby was a boy when a police inspector announced through cupped hands, "It's a prince." This led to raucous cheers erupting from the crowds as the joyous news quickly spread amongst those assembled outside. Prince Philip, Charles' father and the Queen's husband, had been anxiously playing squash as his wife was in labor, but swiftly returned to the palace after being informed of the successful delivery. Philip greeted the new mother with a celebratory bottle of champagne and a beautiful bouquet of red roses and carnations, which are her favorite flowers. Up until this moment, it had been tradition for the British Home Secretary government official to be present for the birth of any heir to the throne. However, this tradition was eschewed for the birth of Prince Charles, marking the first time since the 18th century that no government minister was on hand for the arrival of a future heir. In a letter to her music teacher weeks after the birth, Queen Elizabeth remarked that the newborn Charles had an interesting pair of hands for a baby, which were quite large but with long, elegant fingers unlike her own shorter fingers. She noted it would be fascinating to see how the infant's hands developed as he grew. When Prince Philip was asked what his newborn son looked like, he bluntly described the baby as resembling a plum pudding. Outside the palace gates, crowds of well-wishers impatiently chanted, "We want Philip." But the prince did not emerge, so the crowds instead began singing lullabies together. As per tradition, to mark the birth of a baby boy who would be heir to the throne, the lights illuminating the fountains in London's Trafalgar Square were changed to blue. Around the capital, troops performed ceremonial gun salutes to honor the occasion, and the bells of Westminster Abbey and St. Paul's Cathedral resounded loudly. Prince Charles' delighted great-grandmother Queen Mary visited the new mother and child in the princess's rooms to meet the tiny baby Prince Charles for the first time. As she later departed Buckingham Palace to return to her own residence of Marlborough House, exuberant crowds surged forward and nearly prevented her vehicle from driving off. The police had to politely request the jubilant throngs calm down a bit and stop obstructing her departure. When the crowds continued unabated, two palace officials eventually had to announce Princess Elizabeth wants to have some rest. Prince Philip is with her, and there will be nothing more tonight, in order to disperse the chaotic well-wishers, so the new parents and infant prince could relax after the momentous day. Prince Charles was formally christened in the music room of Buckingham Palace on December 15th in a ceremony officiated by the Archbishop of Canterbury, Geoffrey Fisher. Charles' maternal grandparents King George VI and Queen Elizabeth attended the intimate family event and beamed happily for official photographs with their new grandson, looking splendid in his flowing white christening gown, while Prince Philip stood proudly behind them. The official christening portraits were taken by photographer Sterling Henry Nahum, who had also photographed the wedding of Charles' parents just a year prior. For the first year of his life, Prince Charles resided with his parents at their rented country home of Windlesham Moor in the county of Surrey, located just 6 miles from Windsor Castle and not far from Bagshot Park, which is now the residence of Prince Charles' younger brother Prince Edward. Photographs from the time show young Prince Charles playing in a pen in the grounds of Windlesham and being doted on by his parents on the lawn. The royal couple had moved into Windlesham Moor shortly after their wedding in 1947 and remained there until late 1949, providing an initial peaceful country upbringing for the cherished infant heir to the British throne. Prince Harry is predicted to make a phone call to King Charles II today for his 75th birthday. But the Duke of Sussex, along with his family, will not be traveling to London for the small celebratory event. Charles is hosting this evening at Clarence House, his royal residence. The 75th birthday of the king will be a working day marked by gun salutes firing across the capital of London. Charles has plans to launch a project focused on addressing food waste and food scarcity, called the Coronation Food Project, together with the Queen Consort. Last week, Prince Harry reignited the public feud between him and the royal family when he declared that he has had zero contact with Buckingham Palace regarding any celebrations for the king's 75th birthday. However, it seems an olive branch will be extended from Montecito, California, where Harry resides, in the form of a phone call sometime this afternoon or evening, considering the large time difference between the UK and California. A supposedly well-informed source told the BBC that Harry would definitely want to talk to his father on such a significant birthday. The king is predicted to commemorate reaching the age of 75 in private this evening with family and friends. At noon today, the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery, named by Charles' grandfather King George VI, will fire a 41-gun salute from Green Park in London. Then an hour later, the Honourable Artillery Company will fire a 62-gun salute at Tower Wharf at the Tower of London, with an extra 21 shots for the City of London. Harry's spokesperson denied allegations that Harry snubbed an invitation to a family get-together this evening at Clarence House, stating that there has been no communication about an invitation to the king's forthcoming birthday celebration. But Buckingham Palace refused to discuss any of the king's plans. A source described as being close to Harry and Meghan said the couple were unaware King Charles was even hosting a celebration until it was reported by the Sunday Times. The paper claimed that the king had invited Harry, but that the Duke of Sussex is not making the trip from California. It also said Harry had turned down the offer to spend some time with his father at Balmoral over the summer. A supposed friend of Harry and Meghan's even implied the story was intentionally leaked to distract from the king and queen consort's recent visit to Kenya, where the king faced calls to apologize for Britain's colonial history. This friend told the Mail newspaper that the story is being positioned in a way to make it look like the Duke is snubbing his father, which he is not. Considering the trip to Kenya didn't go well, this might be a welcome distraction. This was despite the trip being seen as a diplomatic achievement for both Britain and Kenya. Circles within Buckingham Palace remained tight-lipped about Harry and Meghan in an effort to diffuse tensions. Communication between the king and his youngest son is said to be minimal, and between Harry and his brother Prince William, non-existent. Today, Charles and Camilla will go to a surplus food distribution center outside of London and meet with staff and volunteers to learn about how food waste can be utilized for the greater social good. Charles will also host a reception at Buckingham Palace to highlight the work of nurses and midwives over many decades as part of the celebrations for the 75th anniversary of the National Health Service, NHS. Around 400 nurses and midwives will be guests, along with the Chief Nursing Officer of England, Dame Ruth May, and Amanda Pritchard, the Chief Executive of NHS England. Early birthday festivities for the king took place on Monday when Charles was the guest of honor at a party held on the grounds of his Highgrove estate in Gloucestershire. Charles joined a group of people from community leaders nominated by friends and family, who were also turning 75 this year, to representatives from organizations like the NHS marking the same major milestone, such as members of the Windrush generation of Caribbean immigrants who arrived in the UK after World War II. Some famous faces at the celebration included celebrity chef Raymond Blantz, the repair shop host Jay Blades, and singer Lee John from the 1980s musical group Imagination. Charles Philip Arthur George was born on November 14, 1948, at Buckingham Palace. After his birth, the first at the royal residence since 1886, his father, the late Prince Philip, drove to Caxton Hall to officially register the birth. Dear friend, if you like everything new about the royal family and don't want to miss all the novelties, subscribe to our channel and like it. By doing so, you take part in our development. We work for you.